Hello, hello. Happy Memorial Day. Okay, this is another microphone I'm testing to see which of my tools actually work. Let me do my intro and say, welcome to Slasher Chick TV, where we are on day 54 of 90 consecutive days of live streaming. And here we like to talk about growth mindset and negotiation strategies. So you never have to choose between this or that. You can always say yes to this slash that, like the multi passionate individual that you are. And today on Money Moves Monday, I have a what feels like an apropos example of some a negotiation we could all learn from, especially if you're a content creator and hope to eventually, make money as a creator. Then this will be valuable. One thing about this mic is I need a stand. I kind of have a stand. Let's see how this works. It does not. This is not the right stand. All right, hold on one second. I'm going to switch mics because this is not going to work in the long run. Okay, now testing, testing, one, two, three. All right, it sounds like me is coming through, but that does mean that the mic did work. So I know that for sure. Now, back to the conversation that we were having. So, if you aspire to be a content creator, then this will probably interest you. Now, I wanted to use this example because it felt, really apropos. This is an article from Forbes that gives you some more context as to why I would want to talk about this as a negotiation example. And we're going to react to it because it's a teaching moment. But if you see here, it says the creator economy is still in its early stages, but it's growing rapidly. And in 2021, the creator economy was already valued at $104 billion and is projected to reach nearly a half a trillion by 2027. And that growth is driven by a number of factors, including the increase in popularity of social media, the rise of new monetization platforms, and the growing demand for authentic content for consumers. So, in other words, like this isn't going anywhere. And learning how to navigate within that particular economy is going to be really helpful for those who aspire to be creators. Now, I wanted to give you a little bit of social proof before I talk about what I'm going to talk about as it relates to, all right, Alicia, what does this have to do with money and negotiations? Well, the example that I had here today is this particular creator where she says, I breached my first influencer contract. Wait, hold on. The browser has lost connection to your screen share audio. Well, I'm not sharing the audio over there right now, so I think we should be fine. Anyway, restart if that's a problem. Okay, got it. Thank you. What do you call this thing? StreamYard. Now, as I was saying, she breached the first contract and she gives a story time there. I thought, listen to this story time. There's so many examples of how collaborative or principled based negotiation would have saved her a lot of pain points. So, just to give you a bit of social proof as to what makes me qualified to talk about such. This here is, I mentioned this in a previous live stream that I've worked on as a teaching assistant at the Harvard Project on Negotiation. I'm a trained mediator and have previously launched a fellowship on negotiation, and this is the fellowship now uh, with its current partner, the Consensus Building Institute in Boston, because it's now a fully funded fellowship in which it seeks to diversify mediation and conflict resolution and facilitation as an industry. And it's a paid fellowship. So if you're interested, certainly hit me up as well. But enough about that, because I'm not actively involved in the fellowship right now. What I but I did want to use this video as a way to give, some examples. Now, I just use the fellowship to kind of help share that if you've never met me before, my name is Alicia, and I kind of know a bit of what I'm talking about as it relates to negotiation, but I needed to give you some social proof. So if you've never been on this channel, you're like, well, why would I listen to you, ma'am? But in further reasons why you might be interested in this topic, if you're a content creator, then you may or may not be aware that there are plenty of ways to monetize on YouTube and take advantage of that creator economy that I was just talking about. And so I just want to, you hear the let's call it a cliche that you should have 7 streams of income. And there's at least 7 ways you can do that on YouTube. One is AdSense, of course. You could have your own merchandise. You can sell products. You can get sponsorships. You can do affiliate marketing. You can have your own services. And that's just the 7. Oh, and the last one here at the bottom, if I move my banner, uh, is events. And that's just like feels like the tip of the iceberg, right? And but with each negotiation, you are measuring kind of what approach you should take. And for each of these, we have a natural inclination as to how we usually approach our negotiations. But what I like to focus on is up in this top right here, this collaboration, where you're highly assertive, you're highly cooperative, because this allows you to get more of what you want and give the other party more of what they want than any other option here. Because with every negotiation, you're kind of weighing 2 different things. You're weighing what you want versus the relationship. So if what you want is what's most important to you and you care least about the relationship and whether you do business or engage with this person again, then maybe you do want to be highly competitive. Maybe you really don't care about the outcome. Like, it's only going to be one winner, and that's me. However, if you do care more about the outcome, the relationship versus the outcome, you might completely just acquiesce, give them everything they want, and avoid all negotiations. One example for this is like when you're negotiating with a toddler who wants something that, in the grand scheme of things, is not that big of a deal, and you don't want to deal with the tantrum. The relationship is more important than what you want right now, what they want right now, too. So. But we're going to talk about this collaborative type of negotiation, especially as it relates to this particular contract, because in every collaborative negotiation, and this is just to illustrate, the more you want the thing, the more you're going to focus on that side. But in every collaboration, you're thinking about the relationship, the communication for both parties, the interest of both parties. What are your options, and what are some relevant standards for you all to both know, is this a fair deal that we're making? And I should come back to this later. This is about my challenge. So let me stop this here. Oh, here we go. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second, because for some reason Loom thought I wanted to record, and I don't. I did not mean to click that. And now I can't get rid of it. There it goes. Okay. Thank you, Loom, but no thank you. Okay. Now, let me just start here to give you a little bit more context. Because I just ran through those quickly, but I want to be more specific about what each of them mean. So, nope, I just want to share. Oh, yeah. I just want to share that tab. Here we go. Perfect. And okay, so the relationship. The relationship is that index I showed you on the bottom. The part here, like, is this a client or customer that you want to do business with again, that you've done business with before? Is this a relative? Like, what are, all the aspects of the relationship are one of the things you should think about when going into the negotiation and when you do your preparation, because that's going to determine also how aggressive or competitive versus collaborative that you might be. Now, the communication, you want to determine or think about what forum this is going to be in, what forum this is going to be in, what type of communication this person likes. Are they more direct? Are they not? This is also where cultural differences may come in. Lots of things to think about. The interests are what both you want or versus what the other party wants. Some interests are universal, like fairness. We all want to be treated fairly. Now, what is our definition of fairness is perhaps relative, but the shared interest of fairness is definitely universal. Options are, well, what are the options and choices that we have here as far as making this negotiation a favorable one where we come to an agreement? And then relevant standards are, what are some of the things that we could both check to determine, is this fair? So relevant standards have to be identifiable and verifiable by both parties. One example of a relevant standard that is consistent are laws. Always a relevant standard. Now, there are generally 7 types of principled or collaborative negotiations. I mean, not types, but aspects of collaborative negotiations that are normally talked about. I only share the 5 here because the other 2 are an agreement, because these things have now come to a conclusion that it makes sense for you to move forward in making an agreement with this party, or alternatives. You need to know, what are my alternatives to making an agreement with this party? Because without knowing your alternatives, you'll never know, is it worth it to say yes? Which brings me to the negotiation I wanted to um, look at, because I thought this was a great teaching moment, and it was really awesome of her to be even willing to share this with others, because it certainly, I'm sure, felt like a personal learning opportunity, and is probably really vulnerable to share. So the creator's name is Whitney B. Jordan, and this is her talking about breaching her first influencer contract. And I'm just going to relate it back to some of the things that we just talked about in terms of collaborative negotiation, on how she maybe could have saved this particular negotiation. Or just armchair quarterback it. Here we go. Now, of course, because this is a teaching moment, but also fair use and whatnot, and she created this, I definitely sped it up a bit.
I reached my first influencer contract. I breached my first influencer contract. A brand dropped me from a campaign. I fluffed up. Here's how I breached my first influencer contract. I almost burned a bridge with the agency that I love, and then I also lost money. So
Okay, appreciate that. She starts immediately by taking full accountability and just naming, like, I messed up and that created a breach. Now, let's find out how.
Whitney, digital content creator, social media consultant, and basically I share the tea about the influencer content creator industry. But today I'm spilling the tea on how I breached my first influencer contract. And I'm here to help you not make the same mistake by showing you the good, the bad, and the ugly part
Again,
of
the
this
channel
industry.
is Whitney B. Jordan, and I will go back and put the link in the description box so you know what we reacted to.
I remember posting this on Threads, and when I posted it on Threads, I was kind of just like in my, what we use Threads for, our venting daily diary. So I just kind of posted it to
I still don't use Threads. Do you use Threads? I'm barely on the Instagram, but if you'd like to follow me on the Instagram, it's _/your chick. Thanks.
just get it off my chest because it was like on my mind and I was annoyed by it. So I just posted it, and some pretty cool like people asking me questions. I can't remember what magazine she worked for a girl, but a girl who works for a magazine asked me to share my story a little bit more. But anyway, I decided to make a video on it because, like I said, I feel like a lot of people share like the beautiful part of this amazing profession, this amazing career, but I feel like they don't be sharing the ugly stuff. Okay, and I got dropped from a campaign, and I don't want y'all to make this mistake. So here's what happened.
So I said, so she intends for this to be a learning moment. Now, Also, I will say, as a negotiation success, is the fact that someone asked her this on Instagram. She decided to make a long form video on there, but it allows her to then direct her Instagram traffic back to the YouTubes and kind of reinforce the parasocial relationship she has with her audience.
This multiple times. I don't have proof. This is just my experience. But brand campaigns and influencer marketing, I feel like it happens in waves. I don't know, like 1 minute, like a whole bunch of brand deals are flying in, and then the next minute or the next quarter or the next month, like nothing's flying in. And so I don't really have any evidence. I don't know. I'm not behind the scenes with the brand side of it, but either I truly think that all the brands get a fresh budget every quarter, and that's how they, decide who they're going to work with, and that's why I feel like it goes in waves. So it's not
Now, that probably makes sense to just when you think about how corporations manage budgets, etc. But and it also relates to the relationship and communications part of this negotiation. If you've noticed that pattern and you notice that it's kind of cyclical, that should inform how you manage the relationship and the kind of timeline that you manage the communications on. If you identified, that pattern and you kind of have a sense that that's what's happening.
common for two competitors to want to work with you at the same time. You have to pick one. You cannot work with two competitors. And that is where I made my mistake.
Now, this is where we come back to interest and options. It is in the interest of the corporation to make sure that, they aren't working with any influencers who are working with their direct competitors. And the options that she just mentioned are you have to pick one. Those are the options. You can pick one and work with one of the two or not. It's not that you have no choice. It's just the choices are limited as it relates to their interest and the options related to it.
Accidentally agreed to both competitors. So let's talk about it. So it was last season, and two very popular skincare brands reached out to me to work. Both of them are household brands. Both of them.
Now, so we already know what she just said is like a definite no-no then. Now, for the sake of using this as an example, we won't use skincare brands on the case it's like accidentally what she's talking about. We'll use let's say it was to Burger King and McDonald's. Oh, do I want to use them? Yeah, I feel like they're on par. Burger King and McDonald's. So Burger King and McDonald's both reach out to her and are like, we want to work with you. That's how I'm interpreting it.
Are sold in major retailers. I've used them both. I can vouch for them both. Both of them are great. So when one of the brands reached out to me through an agency, I immediately said yes because I've worked with the agency before and I also love the brand. So yes, you can sign me up. So I agree to the terms, sign the contract, and then I create the content. I submit the content and then I wait. I wait for approval. And I wait. And while I'm waiting for approval, because sometimes these campaigns can take months, like you could, it could take weeks before you get an approval. So while I was kind of waiting for an approval,
okay.
While I'm in the limbo phase
when I watched this the first time, it was like red flag number one, because with back to the relationship and communication thing, if you notice that this is a pattern, you definitely should have a system in which you keep track of who you're working with and where it is in what stage, like making your own CRM, especially if you're managing yourself at this point in your creator career.
I'm just waiting for approval and waiting on my post date. Another brand reaches out to me, another brand that I love, I use. It's pretty much a no-brainer. And I say, yes, we agree to the terms. I sign the contract and I start.
And that would give you a way that you could also like categorize it by the brand type, etc. Like you could just be able to go back and actually search that later too if you wanted to see, oh, that would be a really good dashboard. I might make that later on like a Tech Tuesday. But you could go back later and see like what brands you worked with of what type and be able to go back and put your metrics afterwards of like how kind of numbers did you do with that campaign and easily have that stuff accessible when you go over to pitch yourself later. So even though if you might be someone like myself who like your channel is not yet monetized, but you have some goals, you have plans in the future, why not set yourself up for success right now and believe that it's going to happen by making sure your systems are in place? Because you don't fail due to the lack of goals. You're going to fail due to the lack of systems to help you execute on those goals.
Creating the content, I submitted, and it immediately gets approved. This second brand was a lot quicker than this first brand. And so as soon as they send me the approval, I post it. Everything's great. It's getting good engagement. I'm happy. I feel like the brand's happy. And then literally the next day, the first brand circles back and they approved the content and gave me a tomorrow post date. So today I post about one brand and tomorrow I'm scheduled to post about their competitor. And that is when I knew I messed up. I had actually forgotten about the first brand's content while I was waiting for approval. But that's no excuse. Another thing that I also
Now, that is a good thing that she realized it before the brand realized it.
did not do was thoroughly read that contract and thoroughly make notes of what I should do and should not do. And
now, communications aspect, that's a no-no. One thing about contracts, because they are legally binding documents, you are going into a legal agreement with an entity. Even if you're doing that solo, it's just you're the entity now. Corporations are people. That's a joke, y'all. But in this circumstance, like the courts would look at you like you're one, as it relates to did you deliver on what was in the contract. So that part is true.
that includes not working with their competitors. So let's talk. There's a clause in most contracts called exclusivity. And basically, exclusivity is when a brand prohibits you from working with their competitors. So, and honestly, you can't work with their competitors for a certain amount of time. So, aside from me not even making note of the competitors, I also didn't make note of how long I couldn't work with their competitors.
That could be another column that you could keep in the dashboard, right? Like if you agree to exclusivity, how long you've agreed to it. And the one thing that I've noticed is that also, if you don't read the contract, you might be agreeing to allowing them to like use your image and content in perpetuity, which would forever bar you from working with competitors. Can't speak right now, but you know what I mean.
So I just fluffed that up altogether. So for example, let's just say Nike. Let's say Nike reaches out to you and they want to work with you, but you in their contract they say you can't work with Adidas, Puma, or Reebok for 1 year. And if you do, you breach the contract. And that's exactly what I did. I worked with their competitor right in the middle of our campaign.
Okay, so now I've already used the example of let's assume that she has Burger King and McDonald's. Now that she's used this example of like Mikey, you can't work with Adidas or Puma. Let's just say, yeah, your contract's with Target. You can't work with Walmart or Kohl's. Either way, you got to read all the fine print because the dollars are in the details.
So now I have to figure out how to fix this major problem because, like I said, it's not something I can just walk away from. I have completed 100% of this work, or 90% of this work, and they just approved it, and now they're waiting for me to post. So I reached back out to.
Okay, now she just shared some of her interests. Her interests are getting value for the work that she's already created, maintaining a good working relationship with both parties. And she's got limited options because they want her to post tomorrow too.
The brand. Well, in this case, it's the agency. So I reached back out to the agency for the first brand, and I said, "Ooh, I think we have a problem." And I explained to her who I was working with, and I explained to her that I see now.
Now, from a communications and relationship standpoint, chef's kiss, hun, because reaching out and making sure you made them aware before they noticed and made you aware was definitely a win as it relates to this particular faux pas.
That they are a massive competitor, and then I also apologized because I knew it was my fault. Yeah. And she actually handled it better than I was expecting her to. I don't know why I'd be thinking people flipping out on the other side of their emails, but they're not. So she handled it pretty well. She did have to go to her higher ups to figure out what the next steps were. But
I mean, I definitely think that made the difference because she led with that as opposed to having to be told.
She told me that I have two options. She said I can either delete the post and not work with that other brand. Like, so delete yesterday's post. And I can't do that. She wanted me to delete the post and tell the brand I could not work with them. Or she said that we can't work together. So I almost felt like I was getting like broken.
I mean, now those are your options here. As a brand, I'm going to protect my interest, and you don't have a lot of leverage.
With. She's basically saying, "No, you got to pick a side." So now it comes down to which brand am I going to pick? And of course, because I'm a business owner, I'm going to go with the brand that pays me the most. And it happened to be the brand that I had already posted. So after doing the math, I decided that the post has to stay. I'm not, deleting that post or walking away from that brand. And even though I had already completed 90% of the work.
Okay, so after she weighed her options, she decided which was most important to her based on her interests.
Like I had created the content, I had the captions, I had everything pretty much done. The last step was just to post the content. And so even though I had completed 90% of the work, I had to walk away.
All right, so I'm going to stop there because that's really the basic gist of it. On what one could learn from that, and she then goes on to share the things that she would do differently in the future, how she would avoid that mistake again, and how she was sharing this so others could learn from it if they are interested in becoming an influencer, working on influencer contracts, etc. So I thought on a Money Moves Tuesday, Money Moves Tuesday, on a Money Moves Monday, I'm already thinking about content I guess for Tech Tuesday. Join me tomorrow for such. At what time, I do not know. Check the community wall. Hopefully, I'll add it there. But on this Money Moves Monday, I thought that was a good example of just YouTube as a business and how everything is a negotiation. Now, I wanted to begin ending my streams with a quote, so that I had some sort of regular format going here. I'm still, this is a progress over perfection type of thing. I'm still working on it. But in the meantime, I did want to share that in my 90 consecutive days of live streaming, we are now on day 54, which is 60% done, meaning we are more done with the challenge than we are not done with the challenge. And that is just absolutely beautiful. And on this Money Moves Monday, the quote of the day was shared by my boy Albert Einstein. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. And that not only relates to money, it also relates to your actions and behaviors, which is why I'm trying to compound on building this YouTube muscle memory here by showing up for myself every day. And that basically concludes my live stream for this Money Moves Monday. I hope you enjoyed that example of negotiation and how we could all learn from it as it relates to all of the aspects of collaborative negotiation that allow us to get more out of every time we are negotiating with someone. And so I want you to write down, if you're watching this on the replay, something in the comments that you could do differently in your next negotiation as it relates to any of the aspects that we discussed here, or even what you learned by evaluating her particular contract. And let me just go ahead and put this in the chat too. If you want to watch the full video, you can find it here and find Whitney B. Jordan's channel here in the chat. I'll make sure to also put it in the description. Now, if you'd watched any of my, well, not any of my previous live streams, but on one of my previous live streams, I believe it was on one of the Thrive Thursdays, I talked about mind movies and this concept that I thought I came up with of making this like moving vision board. I did not come up with it. How egotistical of me. I don't know. You know how there it is. There's nothing new under the sun. But actually Joe Dispenza had come up with it. But I, in a previous live stream, was chatting with a content creator who was in the chat. You might know her as Marlene Motivates or Life with Marlene, about having not finished my mind, not finished my mind movie, or I had finished it, but I hadn't shared it because I wasn't sure if the music associated with it was copywritten music or not. So I just couldn't remember what I attached. And she had previously shared that she makes her own music for her channel. And I have been down the rabbit hole trying to figure out how to do that. And in doing so, I ended up making a little bit of my own music that I was able to put on my mind movie. So I'm going to go ahead and close out with that because it's about 2 minutes long. And once that finishes, I will have completed this 30 minutes here and 54 days of consecutive live streaming. I would use a round of applause sound effect if I had it right now, but I don't. So we're just going to close with this.
Uh-huh. We are proudly presenting, ladies and gentlemen, we are proudly presenting.
Uh-huh.